welcome to episode 439 of the DFO Rundown. As always, brought to you by our title sponsor, Bet365. It's never ordinary at Bet365. You can get in the game, use the promo code NATION, NATION. Get in all sorts of action. Of course, we're a week away from Super Bowl, so we have all of the fun picks, shall we say, prop bets coming up this week. And the final week of the regular season before the Olympic break. 3 games on Sunday. Then you got a boatload of games Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, up until Thursday, and then they're off. And then it's Olympics. Can't wait for the Olympics. We'll find out a little bit later on this week who's replacing some potentially injured players and more. I am Jason Gregor. Welcoming Jeff Merrick to the pod. And Jeff, it will be interesting, you know, the Olympics, these next 4 days, you just hope no other player gets injured. That's honestly, anybody who's on a roster right now, that's the last thing you want is to get nicked up in the week before the Olympics.
If you're the Swedish Federation, how do you not like bubble wrap every single player? Like bubble wrap every Swede who's on his way to considering the story of Swedish hockey so far this year has been injuries. We've already got a couple of replacements and one player who we thought might be a replacement in Matthias Ekholm and getting no love from his home country, but nonetheless, that's what it's going to be, right? And now, you know, Brad Marchand goes down for the Florida Panthers. We wonder about the Panthers. Are they, you know, you and Rupper were talking about this the other day on the Friday drop. Like, is that it for the Florida Panthers? What's that going to mean for Team Canada? Like, I'm with you. Like, everybody's just watching games and just crossing their fingers that nobody gets hurt. That's a new sort of sidebar to this week's hockey viewership, I suppose.
What do you make of teams that have 8 or 9 players going where some teams have 2 or 3? Do you think it's really going to matter when they return?
Chris Patrick, who I interviewed a couple of weeks ago with the Gabby pod, says he's going to be watching. If you're watching on YouTube, you'll see what I'm doing. He's going to be watching the games like this. He's going to be hiding his face, and he's going to be watching out of the corner of his eye, hoping that his players don't get injured. Like, on the one hand, as an organization, you want your players to go because it's a recognition of excellence and go to the Olympics and represent, you know, your team and your country, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Yet at the same time, I think at the back of every single manager's mind, Jason, is Dominik Hasek, John Tavares. You can go on and on of players that have injured themselves at the Olympics, and it's cost their team whatever in the playoffs. Maybe you can make the argument for the Ottawa Senators, it might have cost them a Stanley Cup. I think teams on the one hand are grateful that their players are going, yet at the same time are really concerned that they want everybody to come back healthy. The reality of hockey and the reality of this tournament is it's not going to happen. These guys are not all coming back healthy, and that's going to be one of the wild cards here. And it's going to be one of the stories through the Olympics. You know, which team's Stanley Cup dream was scotched by a big Olympic injury? Because I think it's folly to think that it's not going to happen.
Yeah, well, hey, injuries are happening in the weeks leading up to and if we would have kept the regular season going, someone probably would have got injured between the 6th of February and the 23rd. It's just at a different place. And so I understand how they look at it. But for those who are unaware of the format, there's 12 teams and 3 pools of 4. Everybody plays everybody once in their pool. So that's guaranteed 3 games. Then the pool winners get a bye, and the best of the number 2 seeds get a bye. And then the other teams, 5 through 12, will play one playoff game. So everybody's guaranteed basically 4 games is what it is. And then some teams can play a maximum of 7 if you're one of the 5 to 12 teams and you make it all the way to the final, or 6 most likely. So, you know, some teams will be out, after 4 games for sure. 4 of them will be out after 4 games. And then obviously another 4 will be out after 5 games. So it's not like it's crazy taxing. It'll obviously be super exciting. And, you know, if injuries happen to me, I look and say, hey, they might have been injured just as easily in an NHL game. We'll never know.
The thing is, like, there's a special type of intensity for this one. Like, there's always that sort of special type of intensity, and it's all the star players. Like, injuries happen in the NHL. Yeah, sure. But an injury in the NHL, it could be your 3rd, 4th line guy, 3rd pairing D. If you get an injury at the Olympics, it's significant. Now, here's a question I've been asking people. I'm curious how you go on this one. Macklin Celebrini tries to wave off a high sticking call. Okay, and we all look at Celebrini. You and Rupper were talking about this. when Celebrini tries to wave it off, Rupper says he gets a lot of street cred for that. The officials love it. Look, I'm trying to show that I'm not trying to stage you guys up. I'm not flinging my head back to try to draw a call here. It's just I got to stick up around my face, and that's a natural thing to do. That is not a high stick. We sort of all applaud him. Like, you know what? Like, good sportsmanship, good, like, it's a good Canadian way to play. Like, all the things that we sort of applaud Macklin Celebrini about. Well, a lot of people like, you know what, good for that kid, quality kid, you know, standing up for playing the right way, etc. As a Canadian, this is directly, specifically at Canadian hockey fans. If it's a gold medal game, Canada versus USA, it's overtime, and Macklin Celebrini is on the ice, and he gets a stick near his face, and he throws his head back, and he tries to wave it off. How do you feel about?
Well, he wouldn't in a gold medal game.
It's like, oh yeah, for the San Jose Sharks, yeah, man, wave that thing off all day, Macklin. But when it comes to Team Canada, maybe just put your team on the power play and put the sort of credibility and respect of the officials on the back. People turn pretty fast. Well, no, you see, the stakes are a lot higher than a midweek game against the Edmonton Oilers. People turn around pretty quickly when you say, well, what if it's a gold medal game against USA? You going to wave off a power play? Most people are saying not a chance. Anyway, just something to consider as the Olympics are on the horizon.
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to it. The round robin games I don't get as excited about, to be honest. Now the Sweden-Finland one, anytime Sweden plays Finland, that'll be good. But USA Germany, USA Denmark, USA Latvia, the United States should win their 3 games. Doesn't mean they will, but they should. Canada after Czechia, they should win their games too. So. Then once you get into the medal round, obviously it's way better. But there's still intensity early on. We haven't seen best on best in the Olympics in 14 years, right? Or 12 years, excuse me, since 2014. So it'll be nice to see, and I'm sure the players will be fired up because for a lot of them it'll be their first time at the Olympic Games, and that makes it fun. And some teams, one team who's got a lot of guys going, and their team is really going right now, are the Minnesota Wild. And we probably haven't talked a lot about the Wild. They've got the second best record in the NHL. And while Colorado had a little bit of a blip, obviously, they came back with the vengeance in that game against Detroit, spanked them 5-0. But Minnesota is rolling. Quinn Hughes coming in, and it's amazing how when you get an elite player to your team, it just settles it, and everybody can now look a little bit better, especially for defensemen. So Quinn Hughes is your number one. He's playing a ton of his guys playing 28 minutes a night. It's crazy. And could skate forever. But everybody else on their team now, there's just a little bit less responsibility. You don't have to face the toughest guys as often. And the Wild are very good. Now, we've seen some rumblings, Jeff, about, with their goaltending, they got 2 really good goalies. Would they move one of them for a center? It's clear they need a center. Like Joel Eriksson-Ek's a hell of a player, right? And I think he's a high-end number 2. You could probably make an argument, maybe even a low-end number 1 center. Is he one of the top 32 centers in the game? I'd probably say yes. So if we're going by that rationale, then he's a number 1 center. But he's not the high-end offensive guy. He's a really good player. So I don't know if they can get a true number 1. There's not many of those. There's probably only 12 or 15 of them. But would Bill Guerin make the big swing now to go out and get him? And the reason I asked the question is because, and I know the cap's going up, so maybe it's not going to be an issue, but Kaprizov goes from $9 million to $17 million next year, right? Like that eats up a lot more of your cap space. So if there was a time to really go for it, now might be the time. But I know I see a lot of people saying, "Oh, you would trade Wallstedt." I disagree. I think if you trade, that's the guy you're going to try to keep. Now the other teams obviously want him. I think because he's younger and the potential is higher. But if I'm Bill Guerin, I think Gustafsson might be the guy I would deal. What about you?
The thing about Wallstedt is I'm still, and again, I don't make my mind up about goaltenders until I see 100 games in the NHL. So really, I don't know, Wallstedt looks fantastic, but in the back of my mind, I'll tell you, Griggs, I'm still thinking about that guy last year in the American League. It was no guarantees that Wallstedt was going to, come in and do any of this, even though for a long time, by many, he was considered, the best goaltender not in the NHL. So I kind of, I want to believe in Wallstedt, and I want to believe that he's this good and this is going to continue. But I always like to see the shooters have 2 looks at a goaltender right? So the book starts to get written, and then see how the goaltender reacts. Like once shooters start to figure out tendencies and how this guy plays, get a couple of looks at him, and then to see how Jesper Wallstedt will react to that and change his game. Usually this takes around 100 NHL games, somewhere in there. And that's why I kind of look at goalies and I say, I really don't think that I know them until minimum 100 games. And we haven't seen that yet from Jesper Wallstedt. How about you? Because I don't know. I really don't know. Like right now, looks great, but is it legit? I don't know.
It's a fair question. And man, so last night, I always like to sit in the crowd 6, 7, 8 times a year just to remind myself of how hard the NHL is. Because when you watch the games from the press box, I can get a little cynical at times. And the guy, oh man, the game looks easy. What are they doing? Like, why are they making this play? And why didn't they do that? So that can happen. And so where our seats are, in the first period, Wallstedt made a save where he came across the net, and the shot was labeled for the short side post. Right, the shooter put it right where it's supposed. That's the only place you could go. Is the farthest for Wallstedt to go, and Wallstedt gets across with his toe save. And I'm just like I look at his mobility and I look at his side and how he reads the game, and I'm just like, you know what? Now he's a goalie. Will he have some up and down years? Sure, we see that, right? But when I just look at it from a pure, physical standpoint, I watched some of the saves he made, and obviously I've watched him a lot of other games, but last night in the crowd, a few of those saves he made, I'm just like, there's a short list of guys who can make some of those saves. And that's why I would probably lean towards, if I had a choice. Now, if it comes down to it, I'm like, God, I got to get, because I really need the center and I like Gustafsson. Okay, I do it. But if it's me, I'd rather keep Wallstedt.
If this is legit, I'm with you 100%. I just don't know in my mind if this is legit yet. Again, this is just my bias. I like to see 100 games before I make up my mind. Something you said there was really interesting that I want to pick up on, and I'll relate it back to Sidney Crosby. We'll pick up the conversation about Minnesota in a sec. I remember when you're talking about you get a skewed version or vision of what the game is when you watch from the press box. Sidney Crosby said the same thing once upon a time early in his career. It was after his first injury where he couldn't play. And I remember he gave an interview, I can't remember who it was with, and he said, part of this is kind of a blessing because for the first time, and you think about it, like Crosby's always playing. He said, for the first time in my career, I watched the game. And I watched the game from up high. And he said, what I realized was I have more time than I think I do. And I have more space than I think I do. He goes, and if it weren't for this injury, I never would have realized that, because when you're in the middle of it, there's just bodies all over the place and the puck is moving quick and I got to go. And he said, it wasn't until I got my first injury, blessing in disguise, right, Griggs? I got my first injury that I realized, you know what? It's not as hectic as it feels like down there. It gets fast, make no mistake about it. And there's big bodies all over the place. But he goes, you know what? When I get back on the ice, I'm going to understand and keep thinking in the back of my mind, I have more time than I think. I think I need to rush. I don't need to rush. I have more time than I think. It's a great point.
Yeah. And another interesting point about it was a few games ago, I went to the game with my son and had some friends who were in a suite. And the suite in the Edmonton rink is up a little bit higher, right, than the lower bowl. Mm-hmm. And so we went up there for intermission, visited for a bit, and then say, hey, do you want to watch a period here? We're like, okay, sure. Well, my son had never watched it from that high. And he's 12 now, so he understands the game a bit better. But as he's watching the game, he's like, Dad, I can see the plays up here. And it was such a fascinating one. And I looked at it and I said, man, when we show the game on TV sometimes, would it be better to have a higher angle television so you see, okay, this guy's here, now he's here, right? And you look at it, it was just because now this is a young 12-year-old who's starting to understand the game a little bit better. And he was like, well, because when you coach, hey, I want you to go here, then you go here, and you're kind of like, oh, okay. But then when he saw it, and a lot of people are visual learners, it really stood out to me where I was like, God, I got to try to find a way to get somebody to record a game and show highlights from higher up so you can show, okay, when you're coming in, this is why you want to go here, because this is you have the ice is open here or the ice is open here at a different angle. And it was fascinating to listen, watching it and talking to him through his eyes. I've never been up that high. And it wasn't like, it wasn't the press box, which is way farther away, and the game just looked slower. Yeah. Obviously didn't look slow to him, but he could see where when the guy's having a puck goes, oh, that's why he's passing there. When I'm on the ice, I would never think of that. Right now he's 12, so it's not NHL players. I'm not saying, but it's sure. About visualizing and seeing as the plays start to build and develop what's there.
And first of all, I'm so glad you got us here in the pod. I love this topic. So a couple of things. One, absolutely. And what your son is seeing is the actual game, because so many kids on their phones just watch highlights and they think that's the game of hockey. But the game of hockey is all the failed plays and the entries and the exits and the plays that don't go anywhere and the turnovers in the neutral zone and the regroups and all those things. Like, that's actually the game. So great that he recognizes that. Secondly, the one issue, well, I shouldn't say the one. One of the issues the NHL has, and they haven't figured this out yet, because the game, we've seen the game from essentially the same angle our entire lives. Hasn't changed. But other sports, football, now baseball, other sports have figured out a way to get the camera on the playing field. So you get a sense of what it is like to be in that game, to be part of the game. The NHL hasn't done that yet. And if you're running, if you're Gary Bettman on down, I think, one of your jobs to take this game to the next level is try to figure out a way to get people on the ice when they're watching on TV or on their tablet or wherever, so they can feel what it is like out there. I know they experimented with the ref cams briefly.
It's almost zoomed in too much. I think what they need is they need that camera in the NFL that goes above the field and it goes right through the middle.
I'm with you.
What if
they tried it? It looked great.
Hockey, right?
I'm with you. Yeah. Yes. As whatever you can do to get that on, so viewers can get the sense of what it is like and just how quick it is and how plays happen and how they disintegrate and all of it. That's the next step of coverage of this game, which I do think takes it to the next level. Other sports are there. Hockey's not yet.
And honestly, I would reach out to some of Hollywood's best directed of action films and how they video their play. Like, think about an action film and you've got so much going on and you can visualize here where it goes way quicker in some. Now, we know that the shootout scenes sometimes are crazy and they're just like, okay, this isn't realistic, but the visual that it's giving you, that's what I'm talking about. And to me, if I'm the NHL, I would want to look and find out, say, hey, let's just have a conversation with one of these guys. That's their expertise, right? They sell entertainment. They provide, and they've been developing these type of stories. It's a different sport, but it's all about camera angles and where you should have your camera. Like, I know I talked to one director many years ago who said, he was like, why wouldn't you just have the camera that runs atop the glass, right? Just atop the glass all the way around. Now, not every rink has the same. And then you have, but he just looked and said, you could have that for two reasons, because that's going to track the real speed of the game. Because even on TV, at times, hockey looks a little bit slower than it really is, right? When anybody who sits in front row of a game and then goes sit in row 18, the difference from row 1 to 18 is massive. Then you go up to the second deck, right? And I'm not saying it's a bad seat. I'm just saying the speed is different. And if you could capitalize on the speed, I think at times people are like, I can't believe they made that read or made that play at that high speed.
I want to be behind the net. I want a shot over Kel McCarr, Quinn Hughes, Matthew Schaefer's shoulder. When he has the puck behind the net, to see what he sees, to see the options. Scouts will do this. I remember talking to Mike Fuda about this when he was scouting Drew Doughty when he played with the Guelph Storm. Fuda was working for the Kings then. And he's like, it didn't really click into me that Doughty has to be the guy until I got out of the stands and stood behind the net and watched Doughty starting from behind the net and what the options were and what the decision-making process was for Doughty. As a fan, give me that look. Now, my first thought, because I love you mentioned Hollywood directors, and I'm with you. My first thought is, I wonder if they come back and say, well, could you put drones out there? Could you put drone cameras out there? And my answer to that is, I have no idea. But my other answer is, try it. Try it. And this goes back to why I think there should be an R&D league every summer for this league, for the NHL. Trying different rules, trying different camera angles, trying different things, cameras on top of the glass, all those things you're talking about. Put a couple of bucks in some ECHL players' pockets and try all these different things out for 2 weeks in the summer. Might even turn into an interesting TV property too that hockey fans like you, me, and everyone listening, watching right now would be interested in. But I'm with you. At this point, try it. Hollywood directors, yeah, shoot, go for it. What do you guys think? I'm with you.
Well,
I'm with you.
Wrong too. Now, we'll get back to the Wild, and they're playing outstanding. And when I look at an organization who they've made the playoffs a lot, they haven't won a playoff series since the first round of 2015. Right. And I just wonder, since then they've lost to Chicago, then they lost to Dallas, lost to Winnipeg, Vancouver, Vegas, St. Louis, Dallas, Vegas. I haven't got out of the first round since in 2015. Yep. And it just shows you, and I point that out not to say, unsexual, because they've been successful. They make the playoffs every year. They've been a competitive team, but can't get over that next level. And that's why it's hard. Like sometimes I think people underestimate, they haven't won the cup, so they're not. What? Teams that can win 2 rounds or 1 round a year are hard to do, right? Like the Wild have been a pretty good team for a decade. Haven't won a playoff series since the first round of 2015. Then they lost to the cup winners in the second round in Chicago. And so I look at that organization, what they built, and they got a lot of pieces. I like it. Bill Guerin, their GM, has obviously made some bold moves. The Quinn Hughes trade is unreal. And the way they're playing, like, my God. But I do wonder if there's I got to win at least 1 round so Quinn Hughes feels like, okay, we're close. Because if you go out in the first round, you're kind of like, are we? And right now, unfortunately, it looks like they might have to take on Dallas in the first round. It's not a for sure, right? Could they gain more ground on Colorado? It's possible. But I look at the Wild, and I'm very intrigued to see how Bill Guerin's going to approach the deadline. Will he move the goalie beforehand? That might be probably a more summer trade, to be honest, because there's way more teams involved at that point. And teams who lose that are good suddenly like, okay, I need a goalie. I'm going to trade you something, that maybe I wouldn't because I need a goalie. Yep. So maybe that one's not there. But I wonder, if he does like a mid-tier move just to ensure that they win at least 1 round. And then when you win 1, who knows? You can go all the way to the final. You never know.
Yeah. I think he's still he's a cowboy. Right. Bill Guerin's a cowboy, and he's I think a lot of us are wondering about someone like Vincent Trocheck specifically, and Bill Guerin's going to be, right there with him for a few weeks in Italy here soon. So I think we wonder about that, but I don't think that Bill Guerin, first of all, you have to manage to the season that you're having. And right now, to your point, Minnesota's awesome. Right. And there's no guarantees that they're going to have the same season next year as they're having this year. This is just the nature of hockey. We suspect this is going to be a good team for a long time. But having said that, you never really know. So I think you strike right now. If you're Bill Guerin, I think it's the exact same thing leading up to trade deadline. And I think that's why you're starting to hear Wallstadt's name out there potentially as someone that you dangle. Like we looked at the star of the Quinn Hughes trade for the Minnesota Wild. As much as it was Bill Guerin who got the flowers for it, and good for him. Ultimately, it's his decision. But Judd Brackett, who's their head amateur scout, who put all those pieces in the organization, and even Jesper Wallstedt as well. If they end up moving him, Judd Brackett will be the star of that trade because he's the one that's given Bill Guerin all these assets to play with, so they can put together a team you and I can have a conversation on DFO Rundown and say, you know what? Sure, they're playing the Dallas Stars, but they got to get out of the first round here, and they have a really good chance to do it. So I think if you're Bill Guerin, when the Quinn Hughes deal happened, I don't think any of us said, yeah, Bill Guerin's done and he's putting his feet up. And I think that's just going to continue. I think he's going to continue to be aggressive. I think he's going to, scour the NHL as teams start to fall out of it. And now we're really starting to see some separation. And I think he's going to act accordingly. I don't think he's going to be gentle for the trade deadline. I think that Bill Guerin, he's going to get what he wants. And if he has to break a couple of things along the way, so be it. We'll sort everything else out in the summer. That's how I feel about Bill Guerin. You feel the same way?
Yeah. Yeah. Bill is, you know what? He's from the Rutherford tree. He's not afraid to make trades. He's not afraid to make bold moves.
Bingo.
And he's also not afraid to be very open about, what his strategy is, right? He's pretty much a straight shooter. And I can respect it. Some people don't like it. He's such a straight shooter, but he's a straight shooter and I have no issues with that. I prefer that, to be honest, right? This is what's good. This is why we made the trade. Not every trade we make, we're going to win, right? Or turn out to be better, but he doesn't sit on his hands. And I think that's important. Now, team that's made some unreal trades over the years that built up to them leading, because when you win a Stanley Cup, it isn't just because of the trade deadline that year. A lot of times it goes back 3-4 years. And that's what the Florida Panthers did. And it started out when, you brought in Bennett, then you brought in Reinhart, then you brought in Tkachuk, and, then you get Forsling on waivers. And then all these things just keep building up. And here are the Panthers, though, now. It's February 1st. We're recording this on Sunday. They play the Sabres tomorrow, the Bruins Wednesday, Tampa Bay on Thursday. Then when they come out of the Olympic break, they're at home to Toronto and then Buffalo again, right? And then they got Detroit. They got a home and away with Detroit in early March. They play Columbus 2 consecutive Thursdays. And I know that they're battling for a wild card spot with Columbus as well, so you have to factor them in as well in this situation. Like they've got a lot of games against the teams that they're chasing, right? And they play actually Detroit 3 times the rest of the season. They play Buffalo twice. They play the Bruins twice. They play Columbus twice, right? They play all these teams. But the month of February, even though it's only 5 games, you'll know, like if you don't gain much ground on Buffalo or Boston and you play the Sabres twice, like this is as much as it's about Florida, it's crazy to think this week for the Sabres, like you're the Buffalo Sabres. You win that game on Monday night in regulation. And it's like the old proverbial 4-point game. And it's a massive game before it. And so we'll see, like, are the Sabres ready? These are the type of games that I know they're not a playoff game, but they have pretty big playoff implications, even though it's early February.
What happened last week with the Buffalo Sabres? They put a dagger into the Toronto Maple Leafs playoff hopes. That was the game. Like, I think when the season's wrapped up, we're going to look at that Buffalo game in Toronto as that was the moment it was over for the Toronto Maple Leafs. First of all, I'm happy that it was Buffalo that did it. I'm really happy that it's Rasmus Dahlin who had the hat trick and the 2 assists, the 5-point night. Like, it's just been that season for the Buffalo Sabres when you go 14 years without. Like, I'm happy for the Buffalo Sabres that their fans are having something significant here to cheer about. But like going into a game against the Florida Panthers, like Buffalo's already done it to the Toronto Maple Leafs. That was one, and now. Can you do it to I think that I was really glad that what Rupper said on the last podcast on the Friday show where he talked about Sergei Bobrovsky. And I don't think that topic has gotten enough concert this year. I know we focused on the injuries and rightfully so. And now it's Brad Marchand and Seth Jones is out. They desperately need Barkov. The Tkachuk story is well told. I'm sorry, you don't win if you get 875 goaltending. I don't care who you are.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Like you're just not. To me, one of the big stories is Sergei Bobrovsky, and he flat out has to be better than he's been this year. Then it doesn't matter who's coming back and how healthy they are. If your goalie is hard to hit, I'm sorry, you're not winning games in the NHL. And to me, the biggest, I know injuries are injuries, but to me, the biggest issue is the goaltending, and specifically Sergei Bobrovsky, who one day is going to the Hall of Fame. Like, make no mistake about it. He's going to the Hall of Fame one day. But still, right now, 875 ain't going to do it for the Florida Panthers. No chance.
It will not. And as good as Buffalo played for that stretch of 25 games, and they were unreal, got themselves in a playoff spot. This week is really, this has been a great test. They played Montreal. It was a very good game yesterday. Canadians win. They've got Monday night against Florida, Tuesday night against Tampa, Thursday night against Pittsburgh, right? All teams that have won cups lately, right? And they all actually won back-to-back cups, funny enough, in the last decade, right? Penguins started in 16-17. Tampa Bay won 2 in a row. Florida won 2 in a row. And hey, right now the Penguins have won 6 games in a row. The Lightning are rolling. I know they got their outdoor game today, so we don't know the result yet. But I look at Buffalo, and when we talk about teams chasing, there's also teams that are in the mix And this is a week where I don't expect them to go 4-0, but you got to go like 2-2 probably. And so I know it's only 4 days, but the next 4 days for the Sabres are massive for a team that's trying to take that step. They got to find a way at least to go 1-1-1 and get 3 points in their next 3 games, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. But look at can you think right now of a more confident team in the NHL? Look at how Alex Tuch is talking. Look at how everybody in this organization is talking right now. Right? It's like it's the playoffs are a foregone conclusion for us. We're hunting the Stanley Cup here. But like that's kind of the mentality that you have to have if you're going to be a successful team. Right? They're not just going to settle to squeak in. Like, think of this. Like, at the beginning of the season, the Buffalo Sabres were just like falling off the face of the earth and everything was getting blown up. And, Dahlin and Thompson were going to ask out, and Tage Thompson wasn't going to, Alex Tuch wasn't going to renew. And what's the future of Owen Power? And is Jack Quinn going to, like, all these conversations that we were having. Did you think for 1 second we're going to sit here at the beginning of February and talk about how crucial a week this is as a litmus test for the Buffalo Sabres, as they're tucked into a playoff spot and have distance between themselves and anybody else who might threaten them? I think, like you always talk about what's the old saying? Pressure is a gift. Like if you have, that sort of nervous anxiety before a game, like that's good because you're playing a game that means something. If you're playing a meaningless game, doesn't mean anything. Like that kind of stress, that kind of pressure, like that is a complete gift. And that's what elite level athletes, fuel themselves on. But why not? Like Alex Lyon is on fire. Matthias Samuelsson has been next level. Rasmus Dahlin, like he was my choice at the beginning of the season for the Norris Trophy. Somewhere down the road, like Rasmus Dahlin may just win a Norris Trophy here. Although the new hotness seems to be more at Cider, and for good reason. It's a fun team. It's an exciting team. I'm glad the fans are coming back. It was though kind of a downer, and I understand why it happens. To see a home game on Saturday essentially turn into a home game for the Montreal Canadiens. I know it's one where Sabres fans can, make their money back on their season tickets by selling to the Maple Leafs and selling to the Montreal Canadiens fans. It's just like everything's going so great for the Buffalo Sabres, and I turn on that game and it's like, am I at KeyBank or the Bell Center? What am I watching here? Who's got the home game? That's the only like tiny little thing that I was like, I want the Swords to continue this streak. It's such a good story in the NHL.
Yeah, well, you know what? They're fans. It's close. They travel, and
they do.
So that's it's good. They travel quite well. You can't question. Quickly, let's move over to the St. Louis Blues, and we're hearing some rumblings. Obviously, their GM spoke this week, not overly happy. What do you make of the Blues? And is they got some guys like, I remember Robert Thomas, and we talked about it. Geez, what could we expect from Robert Thomas this year? He led the NHL in scoring coming out of Four Nations. And I know I said, hey, it's only a short time, but it was still, it's still over a quarter of the season, right? It's a pretty good stretch, right? 40 points in 25 games. You're like, all right, maybe this guy's ready to take a step. And, hasn't been a point a game player. Now he's been out since, for 3 weeks. I think he's been out since the 10th. Dylan Holloway hasn't been able to pick up what he did last year, and so many players. What do you make of the Blues and how active they're going to be here in the coming weeks?
Whenever you hear a general manager say he's embarrassed, usually that's a prelude to doing something big. And that's what we heard about from Doug Armstrong last week when he talked about, this has been an embarrassing season for the St. Louis Blues. I think there's a number of things to consider here. One, I think that there are a lot of players that are available, even Robert Thomas, right? Although be careful when you move someone like that at that premium position, one of the best playmakers in the NHL. Robert Thomas can still be a significant part and a first line part of whatever the next version of the Blues are going to become. I think you figure out where Dalibor Dvorsky is going to be able to play next year. How high can he play in the lineup? And if you think he can play second line center, then that opens up a lot more opportunities for you to make moves. But right now, the big issue, I know we've harped on goaltending, and rightfully so. I get it. They've had a tough slog, both Binnington and Hofer. To me, that blue line is the first thing that needs to be addressed. That blue line has been woeful. And the other thing about, and again, this is, Griggs, I think I've mentioned this to you before. Like, this is strictly anecdotal, but does it not seem to you, as it does to me, every time I watch St. Louis, they look tired. Like, they look like an exhausted bunch, and they really shouldn't be. And I don't know why. But they just look like a really tired team to me. And even like Jordan Kyrou, who's like
tired or just slow,
speedy. Well, I think it's a combination of both, to be honest with you. And maybe a lot of that is just like that blue line has a horrible time getting the puck out of their own zone. And so they end up running around in their own zone so often. And I think it's funny. We're just having the conversation about Minnesota. Quinn Hughes shows up, and all of a sudden the other team doesn't get as much time in Minnesota's zone as before. And so everybody's fresher going back up the ice because Quinn Hughes is like the exit machine for them. And there's not a lot of zone time for the opposition in your zone. But man, they just look exhausted. And I think that if you're Doug Armstrong, because we've seen him do it before, even if the team is close, he'll say, it's not there. And next thing you know, Backus is gone and Stastny's gone. Like, we've seen him do it before. And this year has been a disaster for St. Louis, especially coming off a playoff appearance last season against the Winnipeg Jets, where they stretched them to 7. Much as you talk about, Bill Guerin coming from the Jim Rutherford school, Doug Armstrong's from the Doug Armstrong school. And we start seeing things like, I'm embarrassed. I expect action after that. How about you?
Well, when you look at their, like, all of their guys who are regulars on the ice, right? Guys who are their minute eaters, there's only 2 that are not getting outscored 5-on-5. Philip Broberg, 42 goals for, 40 against.
Yep.
And Robert Thomas. He's even, right? 25 for, 25 against. Everybody else on your team is getting outscored 5-on-5. Some worse than others. Logan Mailloux as a youngster has really struggled on the back end. He's like -23. And I'm just using 5-on-5. So, I know people don't like plus minus really, get rid of the empty net goals. And I still think, you can look at it and then there's something to be said about it. But to me, that's the problem in St. Louis. It's a team-wide issue. And you're right that they got to get, so there's no quick fix in St. Louis. I've heard, hey, Robert Thomas, Toronto, teams looking for centers for sure. But and it's not, the other thing is, Jeff, like, you've got the baton here, right? Armstrong's running down the backstretch, right? It's a 4x2, if you're doing a 4x200 or 4x400, he's coming around the backstretch here and he's going to be handing the baton off to Steen right away. So obviously I'm assuming working with Steen right now. You can't be the GM who knows he's done as a GM and make some moves where all of a sudden Steen comes in and be like, I never would have made that move. So it's not just Doug Armstrong, I would think, now at this trade deadline. It has to be Steen working with him.
Let me ask you something. Could you see Doug Armstrong staying one more year as the full-time general manager and not?
I don't think you can now. Yet? I don't think you can. If you've made that announcement already publicly, because if you do that, I think you're suggesting he's not ready.
The only thing that I wonder about here is I think the plan was always for Doug Armstrong to hand this thing off to Alex Steen, a stronger organization. I don't think for one second that when you look at all the moves and the signings that Armstrong has made and the re-signings he's made, I don't think in his mind he was thinking, we need to redo this team. In his mind, we have the goalies, we have the blue line, we have a combination of vets and younger players. We have the forwards, we have prospects coming, but it hasn't worked out. And I don't think that he wants to leave the Blues a weaker organization right now for Alex Steen. That's why, and again, like, it's this little tinge in the back of my head here. That's like, I really wonder if he stays one more year to try to fix this thing. I really do wonder.
Well, he's going to be around, right? Like, but
he'll be around. Oh yeah.
Because I would look at it this way. Who's the architect of the team going this way? What is giving him an extra year going to do? Would that maybe make it worse?
Oh, listen, that is an excellent point here too. Like, this is all Doug Armstrong. Like, a lot of managers will talk about, Brian Burke wins the cup with the Anaheim Ducks, and he'll talk about, Murray and how much he did before he got there. Like, you sit on the shoulders of those that came before. This is Doug Armstrong's team, period. You're 100% right about that one. There's no like, oh, he's not my guy. This isn't my guy. No, this is his team. You're very right about that. 100%.
Before we get to Pat Puff, I have to ask you, on a scale of 1 to 10, because I might be an 11, to be honest.
Okay.
On my surprise at just how gritty and how competitive the Seattle Kraken continue to be and staying in the race in the Western Conference. Like I'm shocked, right? And like they're making me look like an idiot every day because I was like, man, I just don't think they've got it, and then they just continue to do it. And so I wonder, like Jamie, I in a way, I'd still would trade Jamie Alexiak if I'm the organization because I think you'll get a lot of value for him, and I don't think that you've got enough defensemen that I think you could absorb it either way. But I'm fascinated to see what the approach of Botterill is going to be here leading up to the deadline for the Kraken.
Yeah, it is impressive. It helps when you get in saves, right? Like we've Joey Decord was excellent Saturday against
Grubauer's been great.
Knights. And Grubauer has completely turned it around. Like that was the guy that, you know, we looked at like what are you doing? Like the Avalanche, what are you doing? You're not bringing him back. I believe like the discrepancy in what they're asking for is like I think the whole thing fell apart over like $500,000. I think it was that sort of, I don't want to say insignificant because $500,000 is a lot of money, but like, you know what I'm getting at. Helps when you get a save, but yeah, like there's been a tenacity here. Like, you know, I like the Melanson kid and the fourth line guy and that kind of energy, but you're right. Like there is, and they don't play like the most entertaining brand of hockey. I get it, but I'm happy for Lane Lambert at how he's got this team playing at the beginning of the season. The one thing I would always marvel at with the Seattle Kraken until they had their swoon was they didn't surrender odd man rushes. They did. Now it doesn't make for the most exciting, again, brand of hockey that like we're going to come watch the defensively responsible Seattle Kraken. Come watch us defend. I assure you, no one's tried to sell a hockey ticket like that. Come watch this team defend and play safe hockey. So we don't surrender odd man rushes. Come on out. That doesn't happen. But I'm happy for Lambert. I think he understands like who he has and who he hasn't, you know, and I still marvel at the Jared McCann story too. And you know, some other players on the horizon that are going to be really good. I think we do wonder about Shane Wright. I know you talked to Dave Pagnotta. That name's been out there for a while. I always come back to the idea that, again, I'm not 100% sure on Shane Wright. I'm not 100% sure on a young player who's had 3 different coaches in 3 different years. So you take everything sort of with a grain of salt. But yeah, like a long-winded answer to your question. Yeah, I'm impressed. I'm impressed at what Seattle's been able to do here. It's a gritty performance. I think if you're Botterill too, there is probably some not so mild pressure from above to get into the playoffs.
Yeah,
so I think you're probably looking at adding. I don't know how significant, but I mean, if you're making a Shane Wright deal, it's a big deal. But I think all things being equal, I think you're looking to add something not major, but something significant.
Let's bring in Pat Puff to the pod. Patty, how are you?
Doing great, guys. It's February now, so getting excited for the Olympics coming up here, which is wild.
Yeah.
Tough night for the Oilers yesterday, but I think we can move on from that. Buy or sell, a presentation of Bet365. Whatever your bet is, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Download the app, get in on the game, use code NATION. Bet365 must be 19 or older. Last week, Stephen Ellis dropped a new mock draft, and I couldn't help but notice Ivar Stenberg is his new number 1. So simple question for you guys. Buy or sell? Yeah. Is Ivar going number 1, Greg's?
I'll sell. I think, there's lots of talk and, I get what Gavin McKenna's season is, and maybe it's not what some people are projecting him to be, but I talk to some people who've watched him regularly and they're still pretty high in him. So I'm still going to go Gavin McKenna.
It isn't. I wonder how much it depends on who has the first overall pick as well.
That's valid. Sure.
I think that McKenna had the beginning of a season that we expected, considering how much of a jump up it was going to be for McKenna, and he does look like a better player now as the calendar is turned. Man, Ivar Stenberg is so good though. Like, put it this way. If St. Louis gets the first overall pick And maybe it's just, the brother act. I could see Stenberg going first overall. If it's the Vancouver Canucks, I do wonder if it's Gavin McKenna, although they have, of course, as we all know, a strong history with Swedish hockey players. I think a lot of this happens coming out of the World Juniors as well, where Stenberg was just fantastic. And I always remind people, and I'm not saying that Ellis is guilty of this. Like, he watches hockey all around the world nonstop. Nobody watches more hockey than Stephen Ellis. But man, sometimes watching the World Juniors can really sort of skew where a player is at amongst his peer group. Like that year that Eric Johnson was elite at the World Juniors, and all of a sudden EJ was like number one on everyone's draft list, and St. Louis ended up taking him, first overall. Was he the best player of that draft class? No, but coming out of that World Juniors, we all went, how does this guy not first overall? And scouts will tell you, pump the brakes. It's a 2-week slice out of this guy's career. He had a great 2 weeks. Not saying he's not a great player, but don't be clouded by what the World Juniors shows you. It's only a slice.
Yes, Puljujärvi.
Yes, on that great line with Aho and Laine. You're 100% right. Yes, great example.
I'll drop the link to that article in the pod, but he has Vancouver at number 1 with Ivar, St. Louis at number 2 with McKenna, and Calgary at number 3 with Tynan Lawrence. Moving on to the second question. On Friday's pod, Greggs, you mentioned Buffalo is kind of a lock for playoffs. Obviously, they still have some work to do down the stretch here, but they're at 67 points. They're tied with Boston. They're tied with Pittsburgh, 2 more points than the Islanders. So my question is, buy or sell, if you think Buffalo is, in quotes, a lock for the playoffs, is this the final playoff picture we're looking at in the East right now? Because it would be pretty tough for a team. I mean, they're up 6 points from the next wild card spot with the Blue Jackets. What do you think, Merrick?
I think it's done. I'm glad you asked this, Pat, because I've been dying to say it all podcast long. Like I think the East is set. I really do. Griggs, you were talking about, how hard it was for the Buffalo Sabres on the last podcast to gain that ground and make it in the position that they are now. You look at the Columbus Blue Jackets. I mean, since Rick Bowness took over, Columbus have played much better hockey, and they've gained like a point. They haven't really done much like to climb up in the standings. It is so hard. I think this thing is done. I do think the Buffalo Sabres come back down to earth a little bit, but I'm well past the idea of, look, they've won 10 games. That's cute. We've seen them do this before. I think legitimately this is a good team. And as for the Boston Bruins too, I know he's not going to win it, but some love for Marco Sturm, for the Jack Adams, for what he's been able to. I don't think we've talked about Sturm enough as a rookie coach here, for what he's been able to do with this Boston Bruins team. Listen, this is going to go either to Colorado or Tampa. We're looking at it right now, but Marco Sturm's done a great job with this squad. Helps when you get a save, and both goaltenders have been good. We talked about last podcast, but no, I think the East is set. I really do.
Yeah, the one team, and I know this might sound odd, but because I do believe that strength of schedule is a factor when you look at team. Now that we are, you're 50 games and you kind of know what the teams are this year, right? To me, it's irrelevant where they were last year at this point, but where they are this year. And I give a slight chance, not much. I'd love to probably put an average on it, like maybe 30% opportunity, but the Columbus Blue Jackets, as you mentioned, Jeff, just the way they're playing and their schedule. And I was comparing really their schedule to the Islanders' schedule, because that's, I think that, and the Pittsburgh Penguins, and those are the teams that maybe you can catch. But the Islanders, they're heading into a stretch here, man. They're on the road a lot. They're on the road tomorrow in Washington, then they're home to Pittsburgh the next night, right? Then they're in New Jersey. Then they start afterwards on the road for 2, home for 1, on the road for 4, home for 2, on the road for 3. And that stretch up until March 21st opens the door a little bit for a Columbus Blue Jackets team. Now, you got Sorokin, and he's been unbelievable, right? I love Schaefer's season, but I was looking at schedule. I'm not ready yet to slam the door on it. It's close, but I think Columbus has a little bit of a career. I don't mention Florida in there because Florida can't catch the Islanders, right? Because they're the number 3 seed in the in Metro. Anybody's out there, they can't catch them. They've got to catch, and they've got to catch a wild card team. So I think Columbus, albeit it's not high. I'd probably maybe give them a 25% chance, but I'm not ready to close the door on them yet.
One quick follow-up on what Jason's talking about there with the Islanders specifically. I think more than anybody else, Matthew Darche recognizes that, and that's why we're starting to see him already start to get frisky. And I don't think that Darche is done by any stretch of the imagination with this Islanders team.
Yeah, I think that's fair for the pod listeners. Again, the Atlantic is Tampa, Detroit, Montreal. Metro is Carolina, Pittsburgh, New York Islanders. And the wild card right now, Buffalo and Boston, with the Blue Jackets and the Capitals 6 points back at 61 points. Third and final question for you guys. We know how important special teams are in the NHL, and we've talked about this in the past. But the Colorado Avalanche, incredible season, no doubt. But with the playoffs being a little tighter, less room for errors, and obviously taking advantage of your possibilities, they have the second worst power play in the league at 15.5%, only better than Utah. And my buy or sell question is, could this be, buy or sell, a deciding factor on them in the playoffs, whether it be the first round or second round? Will this turn around to bite them at some point, Gregs?
Oh, I always love it when people say, power special teams doesn't matter in the playoffs. And I'm kind of like, pardon? Do you pay attention? Of course it matters in the playoffs. Usually you can have a great penalty kill, but usually you need a good power play. Go look at Florida's power play percentage when they won. Look at Edmonton's to get to the Stanley Cup final. It does matter, no question. Now, I watch the thing about Colorado's power play is they have way more skill than what their power play percentage suggests. You got Cale Makar, you got Nathan McKinnon, Marty Nature. Brock Nelson's having an unreal year, and these guys can't score on the power. And what's weird about their power play is they'll go power plays where they just can't pass the puck. Like they're for their level of elite skill, it's off. So I still think that their power play could wake up in April. But if it doesn't wake up, yes, I think that's a concern in the playoffs where now you only play good teams. And their penalty kill's good though. That's their saving grace. But if your power play hovers around 15%, I think St. Louis is the only team that's won a cup with a power play below 20% in like the last 10 or 15 years. So it does matter. And, below 20%. I'm pretty sure it was. I'll double check it. But I think they had like 16% or something the year they won the cup. So can you happen? Yes. But I think Colorado, that could be a factor. No question about it. If their power play clicks at 15% in the postseason.
Considering how hard hockey is in the playoffs, I always look for one thing. Who has easy things, right? And like who has like somewhere along the way, if you're going to win the Stanley Cup, you need an easy series. You need one that ends in 4, right? If you have one that ends in 4 and one that ends in 5. Like who can put themselves in a position to get the easy things? And that's the first thing I think of. Who can have an easy series? Second, who can score an easy goal? Right? And it's tight in the playoffs, as we all know. And even the guys that can score easy goals in the regular season, come down the wing and snap it in over the shoulder, those guys find it difficult too because of, the gap closes and a gap closes quicker. And that's where the power play comes in. Like that should be the area where you get the easy goal. Otherwise, you're grinding for everything. Make no mistake about it. Playoff goals are grind fests. They really, really are. So if your power play's not firing, that's the place where you get the easy stuff. So if you can't get the easy stuff, just understand it's going to be a tough slog because you don't get the easy goals. You can only score the hard ones. Difficult to win 4 series when it's like that. So yes, I agree with Jason. That can be an Achilles.
When the Avs won the cup in 2022, their power play was 32.8%. The only other team, Florida, was actually 18.5 in 24. But last year they were 25%. Edmonton was 25%. They were 29% the year before in the Cup final. Washington was 29% when they won. Tampa Bay was 32% when they won in 2021. Colorado, as I mentioned, they were actually the best power play in percentage of any team in the playoffs in the last since 2015. So 100%, I believe it matters a lot. And they'll have to find out. Do I think they have the ability to do it? Yes, but it can be a factor, no question.
Yeah, an interesting note too. I wonder if playing on the power play for Team Canada, well, maybe different coaching, maybe whatever can spark something in those guys. So that could be an interesting thing to watch. But yeah, I think it's going to be important for them going into the playoffs. That's all I got for you. Buy or sell, brought to you by Bet365.
There you go. I like it. Now, speaking of trades and moves, Panarin's been sitting in the press box, eating hot dogs, maybe some chips.
It's free agency.
Maybe borscht. I don't know.
It's July 1st for him.
He's eating. Yeah.
July 1st for him.
Do they have to get that deal done before Thursday's trade freeze?
They don't have to. I think that I think we talked about this last week. There are some teams that are, I'll put it this way. If it weren't the New York Rangers, if it's a team that has to sort of, worry about all the nickels and the dimes, and there's pressure from ownership to get this done and get the contract off the books and blah, 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 there may be more of an urgency here. But this is the New York Rangers. And if they don't get the deal that they want, I'm sure the Rangers are happy for Panarin to sit until trade deadline, which sucks for fans. Just as an aside, too. Like, I really hate that. Just I'm going to have the same complaints about game management, load management when that comes, even though I'm going to blame it on the 2 extra games on the schedule. I don't think they do. I don't think they need to get. I mean, this is going to be this is a massive deal for Drury, considering he's just waved the white flag. Not completely tear it down right to the studs and build it back up. We know that. But this is a massive one for Drury.
Yes.
You got to get this right, considering what the Islanders got last year for Brock Nelson. You probably should be able, considering what Panarin can bring to a team, even though it's not the center position. That's what Brock Nelson was. This is a winging position. But considering what Artemi Panarin can do to a team, you probably should be able to get more than what the Islanders got last year for Brock Nelson. So until Drury finds that, I don't think he's under any pressure. Maybe just wait for the Olympic injuries, as we talked about off the top of the podcast, and then you make your deal. What do you think?
It would just seem weird, though, then, if, because normally when you hold a guy out, you're really close to making a deal. So part of me is is this just more dysfunction inside the organization? Because you have talks lots of times, right? But you don't put your team on pause due to talks, right? Think about when Anderson, those guys, they get held out. They're traded the next day, Jeff. They're traded right after the game.
Oh, I know.
So
I know.
To me, is where I look and say, if they get to the Olympic break and they haven't played him in a week, I'm like, I just think it shows that the organization not working on the most professional of levels, because you as a GM should know when you're close to a trade or not.
I think that's where the Players Association comes in and says, hey, what are we doing here? What's going on? We can understand seeing a guy out for a game. I always wonder about the PA's point of view on this one too, because here's a player. Yes.
Unless, is there something else at play here that isn't, I know you come out and say it's for trade, roster management or whatever the hell that came out in the word, but is there something else here?
Don't know. All we can do is base all of our assumptions on what information has been presented to us.
And how much
right now, this is pending a deal, which again sucks for fans. Now, I always think about, kids that would want to come watch Panarin play. Maybe it's like the one ticket they can buy that year, one time that, mom or dad can bring, their son or daughter to watch the Rangers. That ain't a cheap ticket. It's Madison Square Garden. And he's being held out because they're trading him. Not because he's injured, but because they're trading him.
And then how much stock do you put in, Jeff, to, there's the story that keeps going around about, the Rangers and the employee, and it happened with Panarin and everything that went on there. How much of a factor do you think that is for teams acquiring him?
I think for some it's significant. I think for some it's significant. I think that varies manager to manager and team to team. For some, that is a significant non-starter, right? And I think for others, other teams look at it more just from the hockey point of view. But I think that varies from team to team. Right. And but I do think any team that inquires him will need to have questions answered about that. before they close the deal.
Yeah, 100%.
Like for some would be a
next
non-starter.
time you and I talk,
like we just want to clear it up.
Yeah. Next time we chat, the NHL will be on a break, and we'll be previewing the Olympics. We'll know all the full rosters. I can't wait for the Olympics. It'll be loads of fun. Some players we haven't seen ever in the Olympics. Some countries to get back in. Lots of players you talk to that are super proud about the opportunity to get to go to play. So I think the hockey in itself, even the prelim games, should be pretty good. There'll probably be a few blowouts, but still should be pretty good.
Sure. And we don't want to see as Canadians Macklin Celebrini waving off high sticks. Correct. So we just all have that out on the table here. It's noble in the NHL on a Thursday night to wave off. Let's not. Listen, Makar's done it. Celebrini's done it. I get it, but Greg.
Hey, if you believe in doing the right thing, then they say that karma will come back in your favor. Then maybe. So we shall see. We shall see. Just don't do the head nod, and then it won't matter. Awesome. That is the rundown brought to you by Bet365. Have a great week.
Hey, hockey fans, if you enjoyed that video, then make sure you hit the subscribe button right here on the Daily Faceoff YouTube. We have you covered for everything you need. Exclusive interviews on The Sheet with Jeff Merrick, all the latest hockey news on Daily Faceoff Live, and you can always get your morning started with Johnny Lazarus and Colby Cohn on Morning Cup of Hockey. Don't miss a minute. Hit that subscribe button.